So thank you all for joining live. It's always great to have people here in person, and I will be taking questions at the end. So feel free to pop them in the chat as we go, and I will cover them off at the end, or wait till the end and we can put them in there. And yeah, let's kick off. So I can see lots of familiar names, but also some new ones as well, which is always very exciting. So I will give a bit of an intro to kind of who I am, my experience, and why I'm talking about this topic today. So I'm WIZZ&CO. I have spent the last 20 years working in the retail industry. I started my career at Selfridges. I was there for 12 years working across multiple categories from fashion, accessories to latterly head of beauty buying. So I worked my way up within the buying team. So very, I've been pitched to by brands thousands of times, and this is a topic that I'm always asked about. So hence why I quite often do webinars on this. I run retail accelerators to help brands pitch and scale into retail, and also work with brands to help them scale their business and navigate buyer relationships once they're stocked with retail, because that could also be a minefield as well. Once you're stocked, that's just the start. I then, after I left Selfridges, after 12 amazing years, I went to work for Soho House, where I was sales director for Cowshed and Soho Home. So I sat on the other side of the table to buyers, which was fun because, buyers can be challenged to work with. So that was an interesting experience to then be sat on the other side. I launched Soho Home into retailers such as Anthropologie, Mr. Porter, Liberty, and then also was trading Cowshed in a number of different retailers such as Space&K, John Lewis, and many independent stores as well. And then for the last 8 years, I've had a consultancy business, WIZZ&CO, and I've worked with a huge range of different clients, from large corporate retailers such as Ocado, Next, Fenwick, Sainsbury's, big brands such as Unilever, Pooch, Dermalogica, Arabian Oud, but also done a lot of strategy mentoring, business coaching, and helping people through kind of pitching and scaling with retailers through my retail accelerators. So working with a lot of brand founders and also sales teams as well. So kind of worked with hundreds of brands over the years in that format as well. Because this is always, working with retailers can always be a challenge for brands. A lot of things can feel out of your control because you don't have as much visibility as you have with D2C, and it can be quite challenging sometimes to get much time with the buyer. So sometimes you're feeling like you're a bit blind to how you can help grow the business. So that's where I come in and really help brands to help navigate those relationships, think about their trade and marketing plan, think about how to get more communication with the buyer, how to get more cut through, how to ultimately increase your sales, and make sure you're not spending your marketing budget in the wrong place as well, because very often there's a lot of these retailers have quite hefty rate cards as well. So I've been pitched to thousands of times, whether that's from new brands as a buyer, or that's sitting in strategy meetings with the existing brands that I was trading in. Kind of every season, I would have kind of back-to-back meetings in strategy season, listening to the brands and kind of working together with them to help scale the business. So that's a little bit about me. It's great to see some people coming into the chat and introducing themselves. So please do carry on doing that. It's a great way to get to know people as well and connect. So today I'm going to be talking about what buyers look for from a new brand. So if you're just about to approach a retailer, how you can make a great first impression. What's forgotten 9 out of 10 times when pitching to buyers. And this is from, I've seen this missed from big brands as well as the smaller independent brands. 3 mistakes brands make when working with retailers, so you can avoid them. What buyers want to know at strategy meetings, so once you're already trading with those buyers. And then gain real insight into understanding that buyer relationship. And then really thinking about retail versus D2C, what you should be considering, as obviously the retail e-commerce landscape and growing your brand seems to get harder every year. So I'm going to be sharing all of that with you. And then at the end, I will also be talking to you about how I work. I've been running my next retail accelerator, and there'll be an exclusive discount for you watching this as well. So if that's of interest, please do stay on till the end. And then after I've shared that, I will also be taking questions as well. So please do stay on if you want me to answer any questions specifically for you. So let's kick off. So what do buyers want from a new brand? And how do you make this great first impression? So ultimately, they want to see a brand that has a very, very clear USP. And every brand, when they start out, you, as a founder, kind of, or a sales team, or kind of a management team, you usually have created a brand because you've seen a gap in the market. And so what's really important is, even if you've been trading for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, is to constantly be reviewing that positioning and constantly thinking about what the consumer trends are. And this is something I talk a lot about in kind of my newsletter, is consumer trends, because it's really important to stay ahead of this, because ultimately that's where you're going to be able to get cut through as well for your brand. Because often you think you have a very clear USP, but then once you go into retail, you're pitching against all the brands that they already stock. Plus, you're pitching against probably the 100 brands a week that are pitching to this buyer. So it's very important that your USP comes across very clearly, succinctly, and quickly. That buyer has to understand what your brand is doing and why it is different from the brands that they already stock, because they're not going to bring in another brand if it's too similar to the brands that they already stock. And you may think that you know that why it's different, but it's really important you're communicating in that first email, in that pitch, kind of what this point of difference is. So it's always worth reviewing each retailer that you're pitching to, the brands they're stocking, and almost kind of doing a kind of a review of the brands that they have, and where does your brand sit within that. So you're making sure that that positioning is really, really clear. And we see lots of brands over the years that will evolve their positioning as more brands come into the category that are also doing similar things, kind of to obviously we see trends with kind of categories growing, whether it's skincare, whether it's natural, doctor brands, or if it's kind of home fragrance, as we've suddenly seen this huge boom of home fragrance. So again, it's like, how do you navigate that and really communicate clearly that point of difference? The other key thing is also proving kind of there's this customer demand as well. So ultimately, they want to see there's some hype around this brand as well, which is really, really important. And this is the thing that's forgotten 9 out of 10 times when pitching to buyers, is what are the commercial proof points? So a buyer wants to see, yes, there's a point of difference to the market, but if they feel that no customers have ever heard of this brand, they're going to think, well, maybe it's too early. Because just getting stocked on a shelf in Selfridges or in Boots doesn't necessarily mean the product's going to fly off the shelves. A buyer wants to see that there's customer demand already. Ultimately, that buyer's KPIs is to grow the sales of the category that they're looking after. And they also, as well as want existing shoppers to be purchasing from the range, they want to be driving in new shoppers as well. So if you've got a great customer base, if you've got good customer demand, if there's kind of knowledge about your brand kind of out there, people are talking about it, whether that's media, press, social media, influencers, word of mouth, all of these things are really important to be proving to the buyer that there's awareness around the brand. And that's great if you're already trading as a brand, and a lot of people sometimes haven't launched yet. So if you haven't launched yet, you need to be thinking about, okay, how are you proving to the buyer that once you do launch, you're going to have all of these things in place that's going to create that customer demand? Because the buyer wants to see that people will come and be like, oh, I've seen that brand, pick it up and then go and buy it. Because quite often, if they've never heard of it, the customer might be like, okay, I've never heard of this brand, I'm not sure yet. So people need to see a brand multiple times before they trust it, before they pick it up, before they kind of make a decision to find out more. So that's really important. You're putting some of these commercial proof points into the pitch deck as well. So kind of 3 mistakes brands make when they're kind of working with retailers I mean, the biggest one is assuming that your brand is going to fly off the shelf. So kind of, as I said before, sometimes people, and that's why it's important to put these proof points in. But then it's also really important as well that once you get that meeting, once you're pitching to them, you are showing them that you know how to trade and market your brand with that retailer. So how are you going to be driving sales? It isn't just about, okay, stop now, that's it, I'm done. It's really about how are you demonstrating to them that you've got a plan for the next 6 months, for the next year, that's really going to demonstrate how you're going to drive sales with them. So what is the marketing that you're going to do with the retailer? So very often retailers will have a rate card, or they'll have a marketing packages that you can look at. So you can do some kind of collaborative marketing together. Also, how are you going to create marketing outside of that retailer that is going to tell your customers, new customers, and the retailer's customers that the brand is stocked there? So again, driving awareness that this brand is now stocked with that retailer as well. It's a really, once you get stocked, it's a two-way partnership, and you need to be demonstrating and give that buyer confidence that you know how to grow the sales with that retailer. This buyer has got a huge amount of brands that they're managing. They don't have time to, I suppose, to spoon feed brands. They want to be able to see that the brands that they're going to launch knows what they're doing, knows how to launch, knows how to trade the business, knows how to support it with sales staff, with marketing pop-ups, with new product launches, with kind of exclusive marketing or exclusive product launches. So yeah, how are you kind of creating a point of difference with that retailer as well? So you need to be kind of going to those meetings and making sure that that you have a plan. So yeah, that's often a big mistake I see, where a lot of brands are just assuming that the products will just sell once it's there. Another mistake I see a lot is bombarding the buyers with emails and meeting requests with no agenda. So very often, buying teams are very small for the number of brands that they look after. As a benchmark, when I was at Selfridges and I was head of beauty buying, there were 400 brands in the beauty department. So that was across skincare, makeup, fragrance, the service concessions, and there were 2 buyers and 2 assistants. The team is slightly bigger now, but still not huge. So the buyers are very, very time poor. Lots of people think that they've got this very glamorous job and they're going out to getting free products all the time and just kind of choosing all the new brands. But honestly, that's probably only about 10 to 15% of their job. They're very busy trading the existing brands. They're defining the strategy for kind of the whole store, whether that's that kind of the marketing, it's kind of communicating to the visual merchandising team in store, it's training the store staff, it's kind of every single week they're planning and they're trading the business. They're managing underperforming brands. They're looking to grow brands that are overperforming. They're planning for 6 months ahead, as well as doing that day-to-day trading as well. So they are very time poor. So don't always expect to get a response from a buyer. And this is where I could often the brands and the sales teams I work with can get very frustrated, because they feel like they want some feedback from the buyer, they're not necessarily getting it. So my suggestion is always make sure, if you're requesting a meeting, to send an agenda. Try to keep it as short as possible. And again, don't send these huge long emails with kind of all these different questions and action points, because they'll be completely overwhelmed. So it's really, really important to start building a strong relationship with them, trying to be supportive and helpful, and really, I suppose, trying to navigate as much as you can yourself, or try and kind of work with other departments as well. Because again, the mistake I've often seen is people are sending these long emails, getting frustrated, and it just adds more stress to the buyer. So it's really about kind of finding the right way to communicate with that buyer as a person, and kind of understanding their, I suppose, the way they like to be communicated, and I suppose their personality and way of working. So the third mistake I see quite a lot as well is thinking about your distribution strategy. So my biggest tip is don't expand too quickly. And it's about balancing your retailers with D2C channels. They should be complementing and not competing. I mean, the UK is very heavily discounted market, particularly in beauty, for example. There's a lot of people competing for the best price. So quite often, if you're with lots of different retailers, it can be a real challenge, especially if you're early on in your journey, because it can be expensive working with retailers. You want to be driving marketing with them. And if you're trying to spread that budget and your time and your team across multiple different retailers, it can be challenging. So really think about your distribution strategy. Who are the right retailers to go with? And also really think about how many smaller retailers you could go with. versus the larger ones. Because once you start getting into the larger ones, sometimes it's about letting go of some of the smaller ones because they can be a kind of a real time and energy drain as well. So those are the 3 mistakes I see, so you don't make them. So what do buyers want to know at strategy meetings? So this is for brands that will do trading with retailers, and a great tip as well is if you're not launched yet, something that you need to be preparing for. So every 6 months, buyers should be having a strategy meeting with all of their brands. And this is where you talk about the 6 months ahead, and reflect on how the trade has been, how you're performing. So the buyer will be bringing some sales information, and it's an opportunity for you to be presenting to the buyer what you're going to be doing to drive the trade for the next 6 months. Potentially putting a joint marketing plan in place, talking about any kind of promotions, who's funding that, how could you participate in the marketing campaigns that they're doing or with their rate card, what marketing that will you be doing outside of the retailer, what is your new product development and how you're going to be launching that with them. And my biggest tip here, having sat through, gosh, thousands and thousands and thousands of strategy meetings, is they shouldn't just be presentation style. I used to go to a lot of the meetings with big corporates, so I'd be there for a couple of hours and there'd be multiple people going up, present. And quite honestly, as we all know, it's very difficult for people to be engaged for that long. People don't have that attention span. So rather than just having it being presentation style, really think about how you engage the buyer through more interactive sessions. Because if you come to the end of that meeting and you've only presented, you have had no feedback on your brand, you don't know which bits that the buyer is going to be interested in. So it's really important that you try and structure that presentation in a way where you're getting the feedback from the buyer as well. Keeping them engaged, going with the multiple new marketing and trading ideas. If you go with multiple ideas, you can then get a steer from the buyer as well and what to focus on. And also demonstrate what sales growth you think this would do. Also giving them ideas and opportunities to share what successes you've had with other retailers, with D2C, kind of with influencers, with marketing, because again, some of those things might spark an idea and you kind of co-create a marketing activation with them. Really excite them by focusing on what you will be doing differently with that retailer to the rest of the market. So retailers are competitive. There's so many retailers out there and they are basically a house of brands. So they need to create a point of difference as well, which is kind of where they create edits, where they create their own marketing campaigns, but they're not going to market your brand for you because they're doing their kind of store-wide or their category-wide campaigns to try and create a point of difference to other retailers, which then brands can slot into. But what's really important is then to be saying, okay, we can give you this exclusively, and that could be a product launch, it could be a marketing campaign, it could be an influencer collaboration, because that's what will start to excite the buyer. But they want to have a point of difference to what one of their competitors is having, or what your D2C channel is, because they want to have something to be able to drive the sales with them. And yeah, then also think about how you will achieve sales targets for day-to-day trading. So it's really important to demonstrate that you're going to be growing the sales and kind of how that you're going to do that as well. So when you're presenting these marketing activations or kind of these campaigns or ideas, also trying to put a sales growth or sales plan against that as well is a really helpful opportunity. So the other key thing is how to navigate the buyer relationship. And I hear this over and over again for brands that get frustrated that they're not hearing back from buyers, or when they do have meetings, they're finding it quite frustrating, or they don't hear that follow-up. And like I said, it kind of explains like how busy they are. I think with any B2B relationship you have, it's really about understanding the person that you're working with. So to give you some insight of kind of the qualities of a buyer, what makes them enjoy that job, what makes them successful in that role. They're often very creative, but also commercial as well. So every time you're pitching to them, every time you're talking to them, when you're sharing a presentation, really play on both of these points. So what I mean by creative is ultimately they're trend forecasters. They are very experienced in what customers want 6 months down the line. They're always planning 6 months ahead. So they're basically thinking about what the consumer trends, what is it that people want, and adapting their kind of category mix, their marketing campaigns, kind of how the shop floor's laid out, kind of what's put out on social, on digital, things like that. So they kind of really have this vision of kind of the trends and the market and kind of what's moving forward. So very creative from that point of view, obviously love product and kind of then align their product strategy, their buying strategy to kind of what they believe the shifts are that are happening in consumer trends. So that's definitely their creative side. But they're also very commercial as well. So it's kind of quite unusual kind of qualities. Because ultimately their KPIs, what they are targeted on, what they're bonused on, it's commercial growth. So they need to be driving increase in sales and profit, and they will have a 6-month sales target every season that will need to grow, that will need to increase. Every week they will be trading the numbers. Every day they'll be looking at their sales numbers, and they'll be taking action in season to help grow the business. And whether that's increasing shop floor space for certain brands that are overperforming, whether that's reducing space for brands that are underperforming, whether it's buying more stock of something or kind of negotiating different terms with brands. They're constantly thinking about the commercial opportunity as well. So really think about kind of this creative and this commercial aspect as well. And kind of all these points that I've talked through really lean towards both. So that USP is that creative, those proof of concepts of customer demand, is again playing to that commercial side with buyers as well. And again, kind of within those trade and marketing plans, again, it's that creative, that marketing side, but then there's also that trading element as well, kind of those sales numbers. How can you demonstrate there's going to be growth as well? So really think about that kind of creative and commercial side that these buyers have, because that's going to be really important to helping you win them over. So yeah, buyers are, like I said, often focusing on top performing brands to kind of get more out of them, or bottom performing brands to try and make changes and kind of increase those back up or de-risk them. So sometimes if you haven't heard from a buyer, maybe you're in the middle and actually that isn't too bad. So that's always a perspective to look at as well. Because yeah, if you're one of the worst performing, you'll probably definitely hear about it. And if you're one of the top performing, you also will as well. So obviously strive to be one of those top performings and the faster growings. So interim communication and meeting requests should be proactive. So give them a reason to have a further meeting as well. So as well as outlining agenda, as I mentioned, really thinking about how you structure the time that you have. Never run over in a meeting, because more likely they'll cut you off because they will have another meeting. I used to be back-to-back meetings when I was a buyer. So if you could ever give them any time back, even if it's 5 minutes, even if it's 10 minutes, trying to make that meeting slightly shorter, they'll remember that. So when you next go to have a meeting, they'll be like, okay, that was quite that quick and easy. They didn't run over. I got a bit of time back. Actually, they're really easy to deal with. Whereas if you have run over every single time, you send these really, really long emails, that's a huge amount of work to be able to respond to. Then they're going to be like, okay, this is a lot to deal with, and I'll do that later. I'll put that off because that's going to take me a really long time. So be one of those brands where they're like, okay, that was easy, and I want to build this relationship with this brand because they're making my life easier. So the next part I'm going to talk about is kind of retail versus D2C. So yeah, when is the right time to go to retail? Should you be looking at retail or D2C? Obviously, the landscape is constantly evolving. The cost of acquisition online is getting more and more expensive. And of course, with retail as well, it also has a cost associated to it. So both channels are costly. That's the reality of building a brand. You also have to think about, I suppose, the customer as well. There's a huge amount of digital fatigue now. It's easier than ever to bring a brand to market, but it feels like it's harder than ever to get growth and get cut through. So there's also this craving for human interaction as well. So physical store experience is still really important, as well as immersive brand experiences. And we're seeing this from a lot of the big players, as well as kind of these fast growth disruptive brands that kind of really focusing on brand experience as well, and whether that's their own brand experience or collaborating with retailers. So physical retail is also really important as well. what retail can do for your brand as well. It can create a halo effect for your D2C channels. It can be point of discovery for a lot of customers that then may come and shop on your D2C channels, so it can bring down your acquisition costs. It will also bring a real kind of, I suppose, element of trust with customers as well, because they may not ever heard of your brand. A lot of customers will be thinking, gosh, I'm getting marketed at all the time on social media. Everywhere I go, I'm being bombarded with messages. And then once it stops at a retailer, they're like, oh, okay, gives real credibility because this retailer has stopped it, and I trust this retailer because I've known about this retailer for a long time. So what they must be picking the best of the best, which ultimately what a retailer is doing. They're curating an edit. And in a world where there's so much choice, actually having a curated edit is much more valuable a lot of the time to customers as well. So it's another key point to really think about. And then think about the right distribution channels for your brand. Where does your customer want to shop? So where else are they shopping for other things that they purchase? Who is your customer? So this is always really important as well, to start to understand who are they and what they want. And D2C and retail should be a happy marriage. And I've seen this so many times with mid-sized brands, large brands, where the e-commerce team and the retail team sit completely separately. They're almost competing with each other. It should be, from the top, it should be an aligned strategy, because what you don't want is them not talking to each other and then having competing messages at different times. You could have a great exclusive launch with one of your top retailers, but then at the same time, you're doing a big promo on your e-commerce website, which is then detracting from all of this work that you've done with your retailer on kind of maybe creating a pop-up, give them exclusive product, do some PR and influencer campaigns to kind of really shout about this. And it's not going to drive sales here because all your customers are going to see this big discount online, and then they're going to go to the website. So things like that happen more often than you think because of this lack of communication with internal teams. So it's really important to align your marketing, trading strategy, promotional strategy across retail and D2C, and making sure it's a happy marriage rather than a broken one that doesn't communicate. So the other question, which I'm sure lots of you are going to ask, which I will answer now, is timings to get in front of buyers. So they work at least 6 months out, and all of them are slightly different. And sometimes they will do certain categories and do certain range reviews at certain times. But the best principles to work on really is the next buying cycle will be September and October to launch at the beginning of 2027. So if you are thinking about launching into retail in the beginning of 2027, you need to be working on your pitch pack and your approach right now. This is the same if you're already stocked with a retailer and you want to present at a strategy meeting. You need to be preparing for September, October time to have a strategy meeting with that buyer and present your first half strategy to the buyer in that time. And then the same, so if you want to launch in the second half of 2027, you need to be ready to pitch kind of March, early April time. So that's the timings, and also why I'm doing this webinar right now as well, because I know summer can be busy for some people, quieter for others. So it's always a good opportunity to kind of prep for September and making sure you get your retail strategy or your pitch deck to be able to approach them kind of lined up and ready to go for this time period. So those are the all the topics that I said I'd talk about today. I'm sure lots of questions have come up. What I'm going to do now is just share my screen. I'm going to show you 2 different ways if you would like some support on pitching to retailers or trading with existing retailers. And then after that, I'm going to answer any questions. So we'll do this. Okay. So yeah, like I said, I've got 2 different ways of working together. I'm just going to flip through this. So the first option is this 12-week accelerator. I've just finished one cohort, and the next one will be starting in September. So if you do want to launch with retailers early in 2027, whether that's at the beginning or the second half, this is the timing that you need to be working on this for. So it's a proven strategy framework that's seen a number of different brands launching: Selfridges, Liberty, Cult Beauty, Fennec. It's secured international distributors, international retailers. It's agnostic to brand category and to country. And over 12 weeks, we will go through an online training program which has distilled all of my knowledge of being a buyer, being pitched to thousands of times. And you'll learn about what a buyer looks for. So that USP point that I really stressed at the beginning was so important: how to stand out, get their attention. Proving your brand is worth launching, and those commercial proof points, and why it's a financial opportunity for both the retail partners and you. So again, there's that creative and that commercial element. How to research the best retail partnership for your brand and really think about your distribution strategy. How to create a prioritized approach, who to contact, how to find their contact details, what to send to buyers to get your first meeting. So it's a whole pitch deck framework, what to put in there. It's very succinct and short. Most brands will send a deck that's far too long and has much too much information in. A buyer will be generally looking at your pitch deck in 20 to 30 seconds. So it needs to be short, succinct, to the point. So I help you refine that pitch deck and make sure it's ready to be pitched to those buyers. What retail expectations are from a financial point of view, how to build more brand awareness that attracts buyers, but then also helps build your D2C business. And then also what to focus on if you don't hear back straight away, because quite honestly, it's quite unusual for brands to hear back straight away. I've got a brand that worked with me on an accelerator 3 years ago, and she launched into Boots at the end of last year. And when I saw her, she was like, "Oh my God, I've launched into Boots, and thank you. Everything that I learned really helped get me to that point." But again, that took her a number of years to get there. Some people it can take 6 months, and some people it can take years, and that's the reality. So it's never too early to start is also my point of view, because lots of people wait. But yeah, with the buying cycles, with that you might not hear back straight away, it could take a number of years. So try and get onto the buyer's radar as soon as possible is always my advice. So I've got an exclusive discount for people that join the webinar today of 20% off. So there's a 3-month group accelerator, and I also have VIP strategy packages with also additional one-to-one work. So the accelerator runs over 12 weeks. We have fortnightly group coaching calls. We have weekly office hours where I'll answer any questions via the group WhatsApp. And also you'll be connecting with other people that are going through the process as well for their feedback as well. As well as kind of all the training. You'll get access to this portal for life with all the training materials, with worksheets and detailed course notes as well. So if you want to find out more, you can scan this QR code. I will also put the information into the chat as well, so you can click through. Or if you want to chat about this, please book a discovery call. I'll also put the link in the chat as well. Always happy to have a chat and see where you are at the moment and whether you think this is the right thing for you to be doing. And then if you are scaling with large retailers, I work with kind of founders, with sales teams, with management teams on preparing for those strategy meetings. So giving the deck reviews, giving feedback, help structure that trader marketing plan so you can maximize those trading opportunities with the buyer. I help you develop those marketing commercial ideas to help increase sales and profit. If you're underperforming with those retailers, I can then help you, support you, and coach you into how to approach getting back into a positive number as well, and ultimately help you understand how buyers operate so you can have a successful relationship, because that is one of the biggest pain points I often hear, where people are really frustrated with how to manage that relationship. So again, if you'd like to book a call, please do. And there's lots more information on my website as well, which I will obviously share with you after this, and always happy to have a chat. So now I'm going to be taking your questions. We can talk about the accelerator, the ways that I work, and any questions that's come up today about this masterclass that I've just shared with you. Please pop them into the chat and we will go through them. Okay. Just going to put into the chat if you want to follow any of those links that I've just put. Okay, let's have a scroll. Do. Okay. Hello, Flamina. Great to see you. Hi, Sophie. Nice to see you. Hi, how are you doing as well? It's great to see some familiar faces. Hello, Matthew. Hi, Debbie. Great to see you again. Priscilla. Amazing. Hello, Elizabeth. Oh, I love everyone sharing all that info. It's great. Cool. Hi, Olivia. Great. What would be the best structure for the pitch presentation, in your opinion? So when you're pitching, try and keep that pitch pack to 5, 6, 7, maximum 8 pages. I often see brands that have got a 20-page deck that's absolutely huge. And this is one of the key things, key mistakes I see, because naturally as a brand, you have everything that you want to say about the brand. You want to be communicating as much as possible because you've got so much to say. What you have to remember is buyers are probably getting about 100 pitches from new brands a week. So they are going to be looking at your pitch pack in about 20 to 30 seconds, which is hugely depressing, but the reality of it. And so you have to deal with what the reality is. So it's really about stripping back what you put in that pitch pack. It's making sure you're really clear on, again, that point of difference in the brands, your commercial proof points. It's about the way it's laid out. So it's very visual. It's very easy to take in that information. Because again, if someone's skim reading, it's really important to make sure they're taking that information in. If it's very wordy, if it's not laid out right, again, people don't know where their eyes should go. They just see a big sea of words rather than be able to skim it. So that's where, particularly in the Success Accelerator program, I work with brands or even one-to-one to be able to help them strip back that pitch deck. Because again, if this buyer has never heard of you, you need to think, what's the one thing that you want them to remember about this brand? And if you give them a 20-page deck, they're probably not going to remember anything because there's so much information in there. So that's why it's really important to try and strip it back and be as simple as possible. Because ultimately, there's this initial, you want the email you sent to be succinct enough and laid out easily for them to be able to skim read it, so they take action and open the pitch deck. Then you want that pitch deck to be succinct enough to be like, okay, this is interesting. I then want to take a meeting with them. Then you get that meeting with the buyer, and then you can start to share more information with them, because you have that opportunity of a meeting of half an hour, of an hour with them. And then that's your opportunity to go into more depth, about your brand, but also what kind of a launch plan would look like as well. So it's really important that you keep that quite succinct. And I know how challenging that could be because everyone wants to say everything straight away. Sophie, how long should a pitch deck be, and what percentage should you dedicate to each section to make your offer clear to the buyer? So yeah, I mean, as I said, 5, 6, 7 pages, 8 maximum. And again, it really depends what percentage. It depends what you've got to say. Different brands have different things to say. Some brands might have so much press. Some brands might have work with loads of influencers. Some brands might not have really launched yet and don't have a huge amount to talk about. So they need to be putting in kind of what their future plans are. So again, that's kind of thing that we work together on, a kind of what are your proof of concepts, what are the things that you want to put in that pack, because every brand will have different information and different strengths. And then it's kind of working out about how you divide the pitch deck up, and also making sure each page is really valuable and saying something, and there isn't too much repetition as well. Anna, is there a difference in pitch decks for Sephora and Boots, for example? So in principle, I always say create one core pitch deck, which you can then edit. So you have the original framework, which I then have a lot of brands that then use this pitch deck to create brand partnerships, to kind of create do things externally with as well, because it kind of gives a really great overview of the brand and what it's done. So the key things that you will then want to be tailoring to different retailers is when you've done that research on that retailer. So you would have gone to the stores for Sephora and Boots, for example. You would have gone and looked at the competitors that were in that category, for example. And again, you'll be thinking, okay, what are the brands that they already stock? Is there anything else that I need to play more of my strengths up about the brand, to be able to, I suppose, again, proving that your brand is different to the other brands that are in there. Okay, any more questions? Oh, hang on, there's always a chat, there's a Q&A section, haha. Anonymous attendee, who are you? My fear is that when I share details of my marketing plan with buyers and some unique ideas, they may share it with their favorite brands intentionally or not. I mean, with everything, people copy, that's life. Also, if they think it's an amazing idea, why wouldn't they do it with you? Why would they go and share it with someone else if they think you're going to execute it amazingly? Yeah, I see lots of brands and hear lots of brands that don't do things out of fear, but you just have to do it. And you've just got to, I think a lot of founders spend a lot of time comparing, being worried about what other people think, being scared people will copy. And that ultimately just causes procrastination and delay. And with any growing category or new market, you just have to stay in your lane and keep going and putting it out there. And it happens. I mean, I've had a supplement brand called Valerie for the last 2 years, and we did a marketing campaign, and then the NHS did something that looked very, very similar. We were like, wow, I mean, that's pretty impressive that the NHS has done something that's inspired by what we did. And it's very frustrating. But so what? Like, you just got to carry on. You just got to keep plowing ahead and try and grow as quickly as possible, ultimately. And take it as a compliment rather than a threat would be my number one bit of advice. Anna, what would you say that can't say it. Virality of content is what builds demand these days. If you can get content to go viral, amazing. I mean, that's everyone's dream, to go viral, because yes, that can create a lot of buzz. But I think it's still multiple marketing touch points to build trust, because you can have constant meta ads running, but does that build trust? People want to see your brand in multiple places. So yeah, then maybe they've seen lots of ads, but then they've seen it on an amazing influencer, then they've maybe seen it in the press, then they've seen it stocked at the retailer, and all of a sudden there's all these different proof points that are all stacking up. So yeah, and again, it's not necessarily about just one brand that then suddenly, or sorry, one bit of marketing and then the brand suddenly takes off. It's all of these different things. And we always see these brands, we're like, oh wow, that's popped up out of nowhere. What an overnight success. It's not. There's been years in the background of all these other things happening. And all of those things then compound. So yeah, I mean, if you get a viral post, great. But it also could be a big boom and then down again. So you need to be thinking about kind of building a marketing plan that is kind of creating different commercial proof points for the customer to give trust and validation. How do you come up with a truly unique marketing plan? Surely there's so many ways to sell a supplement. Yep, definitely. It's a challenge. We did quite a few viral marketing campaigns, which we won 2 awards for. So yeah, trying to be disruptive, be memorable. We did a lot of guerrilla marketing. So yeah, I mean, the campaign that the NHS was inspired by was something that was guerrilla marketing, and we went around the streets and popped up, and I held signs up, and we put posters on lampposts and phone boxes, and kind of create something that was memorable, that was nostalgic, that made people laugh. And it wasn't about supplement. It was about nostalgia. It was about thinking, if you remember put your PA kit in a Jane Norman handbag, put your PA kit in a Jane Norman bag, you're probably in perimenopause. So again, it was these nostalgia pieces. So if you used to straighten your hair with an iron, you're probably in perimenopause. If you used to listen to the Spice Girls the first time round, you're probably in perimenopause. So it wasn't anything to do with supplement. But again, it was disruptive. We went to Ascot, we went to festivals, we stuck flyers up in toilets at festivals. We went to Wimbledon. Like, if you remember Boris Becker, with a big sign, who stood in the Wimbledon queue and held these signs up. So we did things that were different, that created a memory for somebody, and then that was an emotive connection that then people connected with, because people connect with a brand emotively. They don't connect on a factual level. Everyone buys emotively. So yeah, it's a bit about what we did there. Livia, thank you for your email. Would you send the deck already in the pitch email or just a teaser? Knocking in their door works in Europe. Just two extra ones. Yeah, so I would send the deck attached to an email, which you want an email overview. And again, I go through this in the accelerator, what to put in the email. And then I also kind of help you on what to put in that pitch deck. So as I said, the email should drive people to open the pitch deck. There should be enough information for that person, that buyer, to make a decision to want a meeting with you in that pitch deck. Okay. Some more questions in the other chat. Hi, Nikki. Oh, great to see you from the US. Must be early there. You agree about making the point presentation as visual engaging as possible. We found it really less about the number of slides and more about keeping it invested in the narrative. You can absolutely tell a compelling strategic story in 15 to 20 slides when the content is focused, visual and purposeful. Yeah, absolutely. But if a buyer sees a deck that's 15 to 20 slides, they'll be like, oh, they see one that's 6, 7, they'll be like, okay, yeah, I've got time to look at this. So yeah, I wouldn't, for the initial pitch deck, I would definitely not make it more than 7 or 8 as a max. Anna, would you say that exclusivity contract helps you get into big retailers, or would you say it's a risk? So it's always a negotiation point around exclusivity. And again, it's who has the power. Do they really want to stock you, or do you really want them to stock you? So yeah, exclusivity doesn't have to mean forever. You can also negotiate it. It could be for a year, it could be for 6 months, it could be for a month. And if you are in a position where you have multiple big retailers saying that they want to launch you at the same time, that is fucking amazing. And you're in a serious position of power at that point. And then you have the power to be able to negotiate with these big retailers. And I mean, yeah, that's an incredible position to be in. And then you could use that exclusivity point to negotiate positioning, commercial terms, marketing support. That's an absolutely incredible position to be in. The reality is that doesn't happen that often, but if it does, that's great, and it will give you're in a position of power at that point. Debbie, is it worth doing a lot of pop-up stands to promote your brand to customers initially? Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's all about brand awareness. So you want to be demonstrating to the buyer that there is brand awareness and how you're doing that, and you've got repeat customers and how you're growing sales. So if that is driving additional sales for you, so if you can say, well, this year versus last year, so sales have grown by X%, then that's great. So yeah, it's just, again, working out for each brand, what are your strengths and what can you prove to them? Thanks for joining, Hayley. Glad you enjoyed it. Okay, that's great. So I think that's all the questions. Thank you everyone for joining live.